One thing I will always appreciate about Resident Evil is its ability to make you feel like you're subjected to some type of psychological warfare. In the older Resident Evil games, they were of course bounded by the hardware limitations of their respective consoles, so they needed a way to be effectively scary without sacrificing quality. That's how fixed camera angles was born, and it worked like a charm. Since the player couldn't manipulate the camera, it took away a universal tool to make anything less scary: control. Without control of the camera, players can hear enemies, but they couldn't see around the corner for a possibility of how far or close an enemy or jump scare is, and that creates a sense of paranoia and constant danger in your head. The modern Resident Evil games remove fixed camera angles, but it found new ways to be psychological tolling. Like in Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, both Mr. X and Nemesis became invincible enemies that is always active and stalks the player. It incentivizes the player to constantly make backup plans in case if they appear. In Resident Evil 7, it came back to its horror roots entirely, with the atmosphere being more dark and eerie, like something is extremely wrong. Being in the Baker's home and meeting them, they already established a very menacing presence, so for them to keep using jump scare after jump scare, it creates a sense of uneasiness and a loss of hope. So when I heard the announcement of Resident Evil Requiem, I was pretty excited to find out what psychological effect they will use here. Weeks later, my friend Emergency offered Requiem for me to play, so I jumped on the opportunity to play, and I really enjoyed it. But I also found something slightly better: the hidden psychology of Resident Evil Requiem. I think what makes Requiem one of my personal favorite Resident Evil games in the franchise is instead of one protagonist, they use two. This is a radically different playstyle now, because if you don't make each character varied enough, then you run into a problem where players would feel like, what's the point of the other protagonist if I'm doing the same stuff with the other protagonist? It would feel like padding the story with extra stuff that might not need it to be added. Thankfully, Requiem thought about this and made two protagonists work. Let's start with the FBI agent herself, Grace. In the story, Grace serves as the vehicle to kickstart the story. She gets assigned a task to investigate her mom's murder that her employer knows she may have some type of trauma towards, but she takes the case and heads towards the location. You would think that someone who is a FBI agent would be more capable to handle this case, but Grace is extremely afraid. Inside the hotel, you could tell she's nervous and vulnerable of her environment. From the nervous breathing, the overabundance of stuttering throughout really the whole entire game. Even while holding your gun, you can visibly see her hands trembling. I theorize by Grace being so anxious about her environment, it makes the player feel more intense as well. It's made even worse when Grace's point of view is first person, and that makes it so much more scarier. I do have to give insane props to the game design, because the hotel section in this is very scary. It's not even just because it's really dark, but something as simple as thundering inside the hotel is enough to startle me, since it's so loud and abrasive. While I was paying attention to the story, Grace have a tendency to want to touch something, anything with her hands. It shows in the scene where she talks to her mother. I think it could show a sign of trauma or maybe just a need of comfort, but it is a neat detail that I'm unsure if it was actually intentional. Now, on my first playthrough of the hotel, the whole entire time I expected an encounter or something random to scare me, but instead towards the ending of the hotel section, the officer appears and basically just turns into a zombie right in front of our eyes. And this part is very particular, as the whole entire time I was looking for something that wasn't there, and the simple encounter of someone you already met being zombified was the main event. Then everything that ensures afterwards is a complete panic, and it's such a cinematic way of stressing the player out. The mechanic of the zombie shooting you with a shotgun and trying to let go of the car threw me into an absolute loop of trying to get out of his blast. Then finally, the finale of Grace getting rid of him made me so relieved. This is how you do horror. Now, I'm not going to summarize the whole entire game here because there's other videos that can do it way better than I can, but I do want to highlight some elements of Grace's story that really shows different psychological aspects that I noticed. In the beginning section of the hallways, Grace is trying to stay away from the girl. It introduces you into the loop of trying to be more stealthy and uses bottles to lure the girl. And she is coincidentally allergic to lights, which is used to our advantage by going to whatever place that have lights. Except when those lights now break, we are left vulnerable. There's no lights, you are now one-on-one with the girl. The chase is in the claustrophobic, dimmed hallways with very subtle audio. The fact that she's so intelligent enough to destroy your safe spots and block your pathways makes the player potentially panic towards the final sprint to the door that's filled with so much dread and fear that when you get to the door, your soul relieves itself. Here, Grace meets up with Leon and he leaves her with the Requiem. This is where the game now officially opens up to you. The care center introduces you to proper zombies, and it also encourages you to be more on the stealthy side that's sort of typical in Resident Evil games, like limited ammo, scattered crafting materials, and big enemies that's scouting the area for you. Ooh, spooky. Now you do have one Requiem bullet, and when you shoot it,
Jesus.
this signifies that she never used a high-powered weapon before, and it's a hint to use it very gracefully. You get it? Okay, my life is like actually miserable. In the safe area, we also meet with a little girl named Emily who is blind, and we have to bust her out. The thing I noticed is the more that Grace bonded with the child, the more braver she gotten. While yes, in the beginning parts of the game, she was a stuttering mess, way worse than me, and I have it bad. But here's the thing, she realized that this is more than her and actually makes an effort to be a hero. When you are tasked with collecting cubes, there's one cube that needed someone who can read bump dots. So with the only blind person there being Emily, she takes her to read them, then she makes the effort to go by herself outside to protect Emily. After she's finished, the girl comes back and Grace is now tasked with saving Emily from the girl. After breaking Emily out of the basement, we quickly try to escape via elevator, and the girl is closely behind. And this whole entire sequence was so tense. I loved it. It was stressful. It definitely made me panic, but it was actually really good. Not to mention, the voice actor was amazing here too. And then with the elevator breaking and chopping the girl's hand off, Grace lies there visibly upset and shaken, but guess what? It isn't too long until she reassures Emily that she's alright, and they both is just relieved that each other is okay. It just shows how much of a bond Grace and Emily built with each other, that when Grace drops off Emily in the safe room after she got hurt, she knows that she have to fight the girl one-on-one again, but this time she actually have the confidence to do it. She takes one last look at Emily, hit the close button, and continue on with her story. And I know it deeply hurt Grace when Emily wasn't waking up, because they built such a wholesome bond together that whenever Leon was constantly shooting at Emily, Grace was desperately trying to get Leon to stop, and was shattered when she is finally, well, dead. And smaller things like telling Leon that whatever it takes counts her in. Compared to the first segment of the game, you can tell she really has gotten braver, especially the moment where she puts a gun to her head, and even though I think that's insane that she did that, she was confident enough to do that. I really did enjoy her character progression throughout the whole entire game. It actually does feel really human to be fearful of something at first, but over time, the more you're exposed to it, the more you're not really afraid of it, and depending on what you're fighting for, you build courage along with it. Yeah, I hope we get to see more of her soon.
Talk to me. Is this one like the others?
Well, same black watches. It's different. That's 6 now. 6 survivors of Raccoon City, all dead from the same thing.
But I have something for you. The team has settled on a person of interest. Someone with ties to Umbrella. Victor Gideon.
Who is he?
A former T-virus researcher. Hey, I just got a report of a missing police officer. It might be unrelated, but he disappeared near where the fifth body was found. You there, Leon?
Yeah, I'm here.
You okay?
Now for the most iconic character in the whole series, Leon Kennedy. He is now nearly 50 years old and he's still the brute that we loved him throughout all these years that he's been active. In this game, I feel like Leon serves as the stress reliever, or properly named comic relief. You are constantly on guard for a random zombie and the dark environments in Grace sections that with Leon's sections it is a break between all of that tension in Grace's parts, which is a nice change of pace. He's more action oriented, he have a pistol, a shotgun, a sniper, he even have access to some of the moves from Resident Evil 4 with some new ones included. It's honestly really cool that they brought back those mechanics to Requiem. I bring all this up to say, compared to Grace where the player might feel more nervous and play more cautiously, playing Leon makes them more comfortable to be more risky with their abilities to handle themselves. As a character, he's still the cheesy one-liner heroic king that's very enjoyable in this game. But I believe that Leon is in Requiem for a very important reason, and that's closure. Yeah, he's going back to save Grace or to find out about this virus, but just for the sake of this video, I think it's a subtle way of gaining closure. I mean, think about it. We went through all the trouble with Grace, then Leon have half of the game left for himself afterwards to revisit his old stomping grounds. I mean, Raccoon City is a former shell of itself. Compared to the dark city-like landscape of Resident Evil 2, Raccoon City is now a deserted, abandoned wasteland. Then for the reveal of the rundown Raccoon Police Department is a significant nostalgia trip for Leon as he remembers the events of Resident Evil 2. How RPD forever changed him from a novice that had to adapt immediately to his environment and never had time to really understand his role as an officer, to a veteran who had emotional ties to Raccoon City and the realized trauma that he carried with him for all these years. Inside the RPD, there are hints of reminders of his first day on the job, like his old desk and the banner welcoming Leon. Even Mr. X makes a return, although not the same Mr. X, but something similar, chasing him in a linear chase like before. Then after defeating Zeno once and for all, he's trapped in a hole with Grace, and instead of trying to figure out a way out, he's trapped in a hole with Grace, and instead of trying to figure a way out, he came to terms that he'd done everything he did and found some closure in that. He sits down with Grace and the room goes dark. Until... The ending of Requiem ties up both of their stories in the game where Grace feels much more at peace that Emily could still be alive, and if you look really closely, Leon takes off his glove to reveal a wedding ring, and their stories is now complete, at least for Requiem.